welcome everybody. I'm really happy that you took the time to join us for this webinar today. I'd request everybody to please stay on mute while the speakers are speaking, just so that they don't get interrupted in their flow. Um, and we will be starting, I think we're ready to start. People will still come, keep joining in. So I think that shouldn't, affect anything. Um, so I'm Dr. Deepika Mirpuri. I'm the founder of SAS Global. We are an education company, and
Deepika, you're
we are
breaking up a little
headquartered in
bit.
Florida, in the USA. Uh, right, the internet issues have kicked. Okay, is this better?
Yes.
Yeah. So we are headquartered in Florida, and we have opened an office in Mumbai, which is in Andheri. We provide a full suite of educational consultancy services, including, obviously, university shortlisting applications, and things like that, as well as test preparations for ACT, GRE, GMAT, TOEFL, IELTS, and the other things. Um, today, I'm very proud to present two very special panelists, Janita Thakkar and Atul Chugh. Um, and they have both done their MBA from Kellogg's, which is an extremely famous school, and it's a top-notch school affiliated with Northwestern University. Um, both Janita and Atul are leaders in their own fields. The MBA that they have pursued has helped them a lot in their professional as well as personal, the aspects of their lives. Janita has actually, she is currently a global marketing director at a top Fortune 100 company. And Atul has opened his own firm, which is also in the education arena, called Beyond School. You can look it up on the internet. And Atul, you will, you can feel free to tell everybody about your concern also while, what you have opened up during the webinar. I highly respect and admire both Janita and Atul. And, they are going to talk today and educate all of us about what their journey has been like, why they have decided to go in for an MBA, what it took for both of them from different perspectives, because Janita is here in the US and Atul is in Mumbai. So what it took for both of them to actually get in, how their journey was, and what was the outcome of pursuing this career path that they decided to do. So without any further ado, let me hand over control to Janita. And yeah, it's all yours, Janita.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for having us today, Deepika and team. This is meant to be very conversational. So I think if you have questions, just feel free to pop them in the chat and, I think Deepika will moderate. But yeah, let's just get into it. And, I think we can start with a quick introduction of Atul, and we'll go from there. And I think Atul, you're on mute.
Thanks, Janita. Thanks, Deepika, for having me here. So yeah, not much. I did my MBA at Kellogg recently, and I started this organization called Beyond School. I have about 22 years of experience before this with some of the leading firms in India, whether it's HDFC Bank, Reliance Jio, where I was part of the executive launch team. Post pursuing my MBA, I was very clear that, now I have skills to start an organization of my own. And EdTech is something which was something which was my dream to start off, for the last about 6-7 years. So that's what I've been doing. Yeah, I've been born and brought up in India. Wanted to pursue my MBA outside India because I wanted to get the exposure which the international cohort brings in. and a college like Kellogg provides you that. So that's just about me. And as Janita's mentioned, please feel to kind of ask questions in between when we're discussing.
Great. So hi, everyone. I'm Janita, and it's a pleasure to speak to you this morning. So my, experience has been in consulting for the first 10 years of my career, and then the last 10 years I've been focused on marketing and advertising, specifically in digital. And, you know, similar to Atul, is sort of always a dream of mine to get my MBA. And I'm from Chicago. I was originally born and I guess raised in India. I moved to Chicago when I was 9. And I went to undergrad at DePaul University. So it's a city school. So Northwestern was just a stone throw away. And so I kind of always knew it. That's where I wanted to go, especially as a marketer. Um, and I decided to get my MBA sort of mid-career, so just a few years. I'd already been, in the professional world, and really for me, the last 10 years I've spent on the advertising agency side, and what I realized was I was hitting a wall to get into an in-house marketing role. So by in-house, I mean just at the actual company, right? And I realized that it really, I needed that MBA to give me a broader perspective on business. And we'll speak to that a little bit, right? You could have a very specialized role, but the MBA is really meant to give you general management skills. So they're not looking for one specific profile. In fact, they want diversity of thought and experience. And I applied in 2016, and I had just had my daughter, so I kind of put it on hold for a few years. And I realized, okay, the Kellogg Miami campus is just 10 minutes from my house. So this is the perfect time. So I started in early 2019. In my current role, I work at World Fuel Services. They're a global fuel and energy company. And so I'm really responsible for driving, the corporate marketing strategy and working with our C-suite to really, drive organic and inorganic growth. So I'll pause there. Okay. So, today, our goal is to really, um, talk to you guys about, how we get to the yes, right? How do you kind of go through the process of applying for your MBA, and really the important piece in the beginning is that evaluation. You've got to find the right academic and cultural fit. So we'll spend a little bit of time saying, what is the right option for you? And then you really want to get intimately familiar with the school and the folks at the school so that you really do feel like there's a good fit. Early prep, gathering the essentials. So this is a little bit logistical, but it's really important. And then some programs, which we'll speak to, the full-time, program, and especially for those of you who are recent, graduates, you're from undergrad, you may choose to go right away and, choose to enroll in a full-time program. And so some of the requirements there can be different depending on the school than perhaps an executive MBA that Atul and I did with Kellogg. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And then I know this group is really interested in hearing, okay, well, how do I prepare myself, my professional brand, my professional profile? So we'll talk about that. And then there is going to be an element of self-reflection. I think we as Indians are practice more of that generally. And I think it's important to think about, your motivation for business school, what uniquely makes you stand out. And then of course, the the interview, if you do all those things right, I'm sure you will land the interview, and how to prep for that. So like I said, let's keep it conversational, and we'll go from there. So, I think Atul and I will speak to sort of our method of evaluation. For me, I didn't shortlist other schools. I knew it was Kellogg. And because I had been in the professional world for many years, I chose the executive MBA. The fact that they don't require a GMAT if you have 10 plus years of experience was a big plus for me. And then you really do need to consider, okay, geographically, these programs are global in nature. In fact, I met Atul in Hong Kong at a global elective. I think that was the first time we met. And then I think we also had, other interactions since. And then, obviously reputation. Kellogg is number 3 ranked by U.S. News, so that was really important. At the end of the day, if you want the school for career growth and amplification, I think the brand matters because it does open doors. And think about the investment, the financial of time and, energy, as well as the financial, to think about how you may fund that, or, whether there's a substantial ROI that you see from it. And, culture and diversity. Kellogg is really, really known for a diverse group of people, and I can attest to that wholeheartedly. And that was really important to me. Atul,
Yeah.
any other thoughts there?
Yeah, so very different journey from what Janita went through. I mean, I was not very sure that Kellogg is the program for me, and I did evaluate a lot of programs: London Business School, Columbia, New York University, Wharton, to name a few, and the process which I went through was, there are rankings which are always featured, and there are different magazines and different publications which would carry different rankings. However, what you need to kind of understand before you choose a program is what is that you want out of the program. If you really talk about the London School of Economics, is more finance driven and an economics driven program. Now, is that what you're looking at, or is it that you're looking at more of a general management, or are you trying to hone your marketing skills? Though most of these programs offer general management programs, and these are general management programs, but you need to figure out which is the course which is best suited for you. And I did apply to 3 or 4 different programs. I did go through the process. Some of them required GMAT, and at this point in time, the GMAT scores uh, weren't that great, but not that bad. So I was about 690 to 700 range. I did apply to IMD. I did apply to NCR. I did apply to LSE. And finally, when you start interacting, and I did interact with a lot of alumni just to understand what is the program, all about. And what I kept hearing again and again so like, for example, if you speak to London Business School, it is a strategy program. It is more strategy driven. You speak to any London Business School alumni, he would talk strategy. However, what I didn't hear from quite a few programs was that, how inclusive the program is. You would have 3, 4, 5 different nationalities in some of the programs. Uh, some of the programs focus more on acads. But what Kellogg did for me was, as Anita mentioned, there were 6 different campuses. You typically would interact with 700 to 800 people. For me, one of the biggest thing which I wanted to was the build my network, and that's what MBA would do for you, because finally, whatever program you do, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the line, that is the network is what would pay off for you. I mean, Janita mentioned we interacted first time in Hong Kong. Since then, we've been talking to each other. We've met at different campuses a few times. And when Janita was speaking to Deepika, she texted me saying that you want to be part of it, and that's what the network is all about. And Kellogg has one of the best alumni network probably in the world. So these are the things which you also will have to consider before you choose a program. So apart from what kind of test, what kind of requirements are, which are more academic in nature, I would encourage you to reach out to alumni of those colleges more and more, talk to them, and see if there is a fit in what your thought process is and what you want to do. Yeah, Janita.
Yeah, perfect. And that's a perfect segue. Thank you, Atul, in terms of getting acquainted. So, whether these are virtual events, or, you have the opportunity to be in that particular country or city to, attend an admissions event, I highly encourage that. And, network with the students, the faculty, the admissions council, And oftentimes, LinkedIn too, if you see, schools and alumni from there, I think many people are very open to talking about their experience. So, including Atul and I. So speak to the students. Often you may have the opportunity to sit in on classes. I highly encourage that. In fact, I sat in on a marketing class that really, inspired me. So, these activities will help you pick a program that's both academically and culturally a good fit for your personal and professional growth. I'm going to just quickly pause. Any questions? I really want, this group to feel free, and it's a safe space. So we're happy to answer any questions or comments at this point. Okay. That means we're doing a good job, Atul. Okay. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time here, but depending
No,
on.
I think we have a question.
Okay.
It was sent to me. So the question was that do you have to have prior work experience to get into Kellogg's, or do they have, somebody fresh out of school? Can they do an MBA as well? Um,
Yeah, and that's a good question. And in the appendix, and I think this might be shared out to the group, but Kellogg has a variety of programs. So no, you don't have to choose the executive MBA. There is, the full-time MBA that's geared towards recent grads, undergrads. There are, part-time programs, evenings, weekends. And so no, I mean most schools will have various options. And so absolutely, that's open to you. It's not just geared on the executive MBA.
I'll just add, Janita, if you're talking about, whether prior experience is required to get into an MBA program, uh, it is not a mandate. However, it is always preferred, when we're sitting in an interview and when you fill up the application form. And I think, Janita, you'll talk about the application form a little more in detail, but, typically if you have an experience, that experience comes out in the application form, and that's how you have an edge over the other applicants.
Mhm.
So though it is not a mandate, but you would have a lot of classmates of yours in either of the programs who would have some kind of an experience.
Mhm.
But if you have very strong extracurricular background, then typically you would be able to get through. As Zinita mentioned, they look at diversity more than anything else. So you would have typical freshers also part of the class. Exec MBA, as Jita mentioned, needs experience. I mean, 7 to 10 years is minimum experience in the course. So for exec MBA, yes, but for a normal MBA, 1 year or 2 year,
Mhm.
preferred but not essential as such.
Yeah. And I think that, if you have sort of that 4 or 5 year work experience under your belt, I mean, that's a nice sweet spot too, because ultimately you can bring in real world experience into the classroom and the conversation. And I think that just creates for, a richer discussion in class. So
okay.
yeah, I mean, oh, go
Sorry,
ahead.
I just have one more question that's
Yeah.
related to what we're talking about. So, Dave Kumar is asking, what kind of work experience what is considered good for a top business school? So, basically, is it like what quality of work experience? It doesn't matter where you get your work experience, if you're a top position somewhere or if you're just freshie somewhere, that kind of thing. Do you know if they look at that as well?
So you want me to take that?
Yeah, sure.
So not essential to be. The only thing which Zanita mentioned, the whole point of the experience is that when you're part of the class, you can participate in a discussion. Typically, most of the Indians, when they do MBA in India, you would see a 90% of the class, which is absolutely fresher. So a lot of concepts which are being taught in the class are something which is more theoretical for you if you are a fresher. However, if you have 2, 3, 4 years of experience at any grade, any level, in any kind of an organization, then whatever concepts are being taught in the class, you can relate more to it. So it is not that you need to have a consulting experience or you need to have an ops experience or a sales experience, as long as you can understand what the organization is all about.
Yeah.
That helps. So that's something which typically they don't look at. But as I said, uh, the more diverse the class is, the better it is for learning, and that's what typically the colleges look for. Yeah.
Yeah, that's spot on. I mean, I'll tell you, our cohort, we had doctors, we had lawyers, we had entrepreneurs, we had, veterans. So, and we had quite, folks that were quite young in their career, right? So they still had the 7 to 10 years of experience, but I don't think it matters if you're at a blue chip company, for example. I think what you want to bring out in your application and your essays is, what makes you unique, and are there specific achievements? So what might you want to highlight in your specific experience? So I think the name of the company doesn't matter as much as the story you tell and how you stand out. Okay. So yeah, I'll move on from here because these are, sort of self-explanatory. The other, sorry,
So
I'm
I'll
having,
just stop here for
oh
Indian students specifically.
yeah,
The first point is important because
yeah.
to gather your transcripts is a task in India. So if you're preparing, and we would have done your undergraduate from a different city or a different state. If you're planning to do it, I would strongly suggest that you understand what the process is right
Mhm,
from now, because that will help you later.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you might end up missing a deadline just because the transcripts you're still trying to figure out. Like Delhi University, for sure, I know that you need to go physically. They don't
mhm,
do anything, over the mail. So
mhm,
yeah, so transcripts is something which you'll have to figure out right from the beginning if you're planning to do it. What the process is, how it comes, how do you
mhm.
get it? A lot of people don't know what transcripts is in India when they're
Yeah.
going for. Yeah, so that's what I would just add.
Yeah, and actually, to that point, the second bullet here is important too, because, oftentimes when you are a recent undergrad, you don't know who your endorsers are, right? When you've been working, you have, colleagues or mentors or, superiors who can recommend you. But when you're out of undergrad, you kind of have to think about, who in your network is going to endorse you. So it can be faculty, it can be a mentor, it can be, a volunteer organization, right, where you might have made a big impact in the community. So, you might have to think broadly when you're, and reach out to them early because they do have to spend time writing that recommendation letter. And you really also want to prepare them on, what, kind of, just giving them enough context to write a rich recommendation letter and communicate those deadlines with them as well. Any other questions, Deepika?
I think we can move on, and we can probably take some more questions at the next stage. Your test preparation is perfect. We have a
Yeah,
queue. Yeah.
yeah. And then test prep, right? So I already mentioned this, but depending on the program, there's going to be some requirements. GMAT or often the GRE, and Deepika, obviously is a great resource for you guys in that area. And just, I think the biggest thing here is, having a plan in place. I will give you a quick story. I actually was planning to apply to Kellogg, almost right after undergrad. And I had taken both the Kaplan and Princeton review, okay, various times 10 years ago. And I just realized, like, at that time, I wasn't ready. So I was thinking of the full time program, but I wasn't ready, to commit to the time. I enjoyed being, working. So sometimes your plans on when you might take it, the test, or when you might apply, will change, and that's okay. Okay, so we'll spend some time here because I know everyone's curious on the professional profile. It touches upon the question earlier, what career, what kind of background is ideal for business school, and I honestly think there's no one background. So I want to stress again the diversity of thought, and you know, in terms of tactically, when you are preparing for your profile, you want to differentiate yourself from others. So reach out for opportunities that give you a chance to do that, whether it's community based or professional. And really think about measurable results, and Atul, I think you've done a great job of that. And can you quantify some of those results? Because, it helps just firm up that experience.
Yeah,
And yep, go ahead, Atul.
yeah. So there are two things which I learned when I spoke to a lot of people when I was kind of preparing to apply for colleges, and the two things which came out was, one is that you should kind of detail out what you've been able to achieve in life, and apart from that, what you need to very clearly state out in your essays or during your interviews is how you would be able to help uh, your classmates in the learning process. So what do you bring on the table, and what is that you're looking for when you're joining a program and an MBA program? So these are the two things which very clearly needs to be communicated. As Janita mentioned, it doesn't matter what company you are working for. It matters more in terms of what you've been able to achieve, and the what and the how is something which if it clearly comes out in the essay or the document, would obviously give you the edge over others, and that is something which will help you in the interview process as well. Quantify numbers in terms of what your achievement has been, but I would also strongly urge you guys, when you're writing the essay, to also put in place how you would be able to aid the learning in the class. So what is that you bring, and how open you are to kind of share, discuss, and make people understand the concepts. So these are the two things which, if you are able to build, and you come out as a professional who not only is an achiever, at the same time is a person who's humble, and at Kellogg, that is something which matters a lot. Low ego, high impact is the term which we keep using for ourselves. So that is something which should come out in any essay for that matter.
Yeah. And I think if we think about the soft skills that top tier MBA programs look for, it's leadership, it's impact, it's crisis management, or how even you overcame adversity in various situations, you know, adaptability, right? So you can quantify the results or your achievements, but think about, how you can advance, um, the conversation, and also, help others in the program learn to lead, right? Learn to make an impact. Comments, questions on this?
This is one of the most important things
Yes.
which you need to do
Yes.
apart from the GMAT. Deepika, any questions on that, or can we move forward?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's I think not specifically. Um, but we'll get to more questions at the
Sure.
end. If anybody
Yeah.
has any questions or thinks of them, please feel free to type them in the chat, and we'll get to them when we have the formal Q&A as well. So keep typing them in, guys.
Okay, great. And this one is really important too. I think this number 5 and number 6 to me are the most important, because you can't really understand what your unique value proposition or selling point is without taking some time to reflect on it. And this comes to, this will shine through in the admission essays. So typically most schools will ask for 2 essays. I think I was asked, one was definitely around your motivation for the MBA, why you are pursuing it. And then the other one, I forget now. I don't know if Atul, you remember, but there was a third one, which was, if there are other extenuating circumstances, if there was a gap in your employment history or a dip in your GPA or, undergraduate scores, you should explain that in a thoughtful way or tactful way. And really, this is where storytelling comes through. This is where self-reflection comes through. What is that key thing that influenced your decision? And it really, also anything that really exemplifies your core values, right?
So yeah, Janita, just to add, I did apply for a scholarship as well. So there would be an essay for scholarship. I think that Janita would cover in financials. But typically, the whole point of why you and nobody else should qualify for that, and it's again, going back to saying that what is that you, why would Kellogg or any other institute fund half or 30% or 20% of your fee? Uh, Something needs to come out of, very clearly come out of that essay, saying that this is the reason I am the deserving candidate. And it is not to do saying that I don't have the money. It's more to do with this is what I bring on the table. So you paying me for that kind of a thing needs to come out. So yeah, that's it. There are three, typically 2 to 3 essays. One describing more about what you've done in life. Second, describing more about what is the motivation of doing it. And then, depending upon the school, there could be a specific case which might be given to you,
Yeah.
how the whole the process would be in terms of thought process,
Yeah, that's a
which is yeah.
yeah, that's a really great point. Let me just touch upon the scholarship. So, oftentimes you need to do some more research on what kind of scholarships or grants are available. And for example, for me, I applied and I didn't know that there was a merit-based scholarship. And I kind of had to ask some more questions on, okay, are there grant opportunities? Are there scholarship opportunities? Because they don't, oftentimes make it very self-apparent. And don't be afraid to ask, because you may very well be a really perfect candidate for that type of aid. Okay, so given the COVID environment that we're in, and I think this is gonna maybe I think this may become the norm. You will have, most likely, your interview will be virtual. And other than kind of make sure you review what you've submitted in the past, so the story is natural and you can build on it. Obviously, check your set. Are you in a quiet setting? Good lighting, stable internet connection. But at the end of the day, you want to be yourself. It should be a fluid conversation with the interviewer. It should ebb and flow and feel less like a Q&A session. And one thing I like to ask at the end of any interview, whether it's for a job or even, a school, is at the end, ask the question, do you have, is there anything I can elaborate on, that perhaps right now you may have a doubt in my candidacy, or that, you want clarification on? Because sometimes, um, you may not have explained the whole story, and it leaves sort of this question mark in the interviewer's mind. Well, are they really and it gives you a chance to get feedback and a chance to close the gap if there is some more things that you want to elaborate on. So, they may not answer right away, and they may ask you follow-up information. Always send a thank you note, try to personalize it. So
So basically, communication should be kept open, and just like a reminder that, hey, I'm here. Don't forget about me, kind of thing.
yeah, and follow up, be flexible. So I was accepted, December 2018. I was in the third round. I applied in the third round, so most of the class was filled up. And I got the acceptance call, and they were like, "Well, could you start in September of 2019 instead of January? That's where we have the open slot." Sometimes, Kellogg's main campus is in Evanston. So while I was living in Miami, they might say, "Well, in January, if you want to start, we have a slot in Evanston." So be flexible. Obviously, still, has to work for you. And I actually just got lucky, and they said, "Oh, a last minute slot opened up in January." So it worked out. But if you really want to go to that specific school, you will have to kind of adapt to, what their capacity is, perhaps.
Just to kind of end this from my perspective, uh, interview specifically for an MBA college, uh, don't stress yourself too much before the interview. You should be prepared for the interview, but you should not feel this is the make or break situation for you. If you don't get through this, that, and the other, because then you end up getting very nervous and you just not yourself. So as
Yeah.
Janita mentioned, be yourself in the interview, be prepared for everything. Make sure you're prepared, you've met people, as we mentioned earlier, you've had a discussion, because typically, again, the questions would be around uh, motivation. Most of the questions which are written in the essay typically we try to, you know, use a lot of flowery language and try to kind of make sure that somebody is read through. Interview, be yourself and speak about what you've done, speak about what your motivation is, speak about what you see as as your future, or what is that you're looking at in the future, and then you'll be good. It's just that just don't get stressed about an interview, because
Mhm.
yes, there would be an interview, it has to happen, but just be yourself.
Yeah. It's interesting in my interview, and this is why self-reflection is so important. They asked me, what were some self-limiting beliefs that you had, that you either don't have anymore or that you want to get past through this program? What is that shift in mindset that this program that you expect from this program? So that was, it kind of like made me pause, because I never thought about it that way. I've never even thought about, what my self-limiting beliefs might be. So again, you might get some more of those qualitative questions too. So that's where the self-reflection really makes a difference.
So do they ask, the questions as such, are they more focused on what you've written in your profile, like technical details? Do they ask you about those, or do they focus more on you as a holistic person and pick out stuff, that stands out from your essays, etc.? How do they, what was your, or do they ask like a mix of everything?
I think it's a build on your profile. So I mean, at least with Kellogg, I didn't get a lot of questions on, well, tell me about this particular achievement. You might be asked, I noticed you had this achievement, but what were some challenges you faced? Like, tell me more, right? Tell me more about, how you got to a particular result rather than the result itself.
So they're just attempting to get to know you during the interview.
Yeah, and you might find, and maybe I'm kind of focusing more on the softer side, but you might find that in the interview itself, there might not be a fit, at that point, and that's okay. So, Atul, anything else to add there?
No, so Deepika very rightly said, a lot of questions are based on the essays which you have written, and one of the mistakes which we Indians do, and I know it because there are a couple of friends of mine who kind of did apply. They kind of went overboard with their essays, and when they went for the interviews, they were not prepared enough. So the questions typically are around what you've written in the essays, so it builds up from there, because you would have detailed it out. So you need to balance it. What is that you want to do it in essay, and it has to be more saying that this is what I've done in the past, and so that you can build. I always say that you can lead an interviewer into asking questions which
Yeah,
you want to answer. So your essay should be the first step to it.
yeah,
And typically the questions are not on technical too much. It is, they could be, when depending
mhm,
upon how detailed have you gone into the essay.
mhm,
But typically they, as Jinita mentioned, they kind of want to see you as a person, as an holistic personality and a fit with the
mhm,
program. So
yeah,
that's the balance which you need to maintain. So one of the other things which I will recommend everyone, because you would be applying to a lot of institutes, don't just you'll have to write essay for different institutes differently. Don't try to attempt using the same copy paste across, because different institutes have different philosophies in life. Kellogg has diversity. Wharton typically looks at the guy who's the best and the topmost in everything. So that's what you'll have to balance it out. But
mhm,
yeah, so questions would be around the essay and the profile of yours.
yeah.
Yeah, they should answer. Akshay, your question should have been answered by Atul's and Janita's response. Um,
Okay. Great. I mean, that brings us to the end. Just this is this is a big decision. And when you make it, you've thought about the time required, the effort required, and I will say, I mean, for those, you've got families, those that are mid-career or even early careers. So you want to also, talk it through with them because it's going to require some sacrifice, some trade-offs, and their support, right? And you really, I mean, for me, I couldn't have done it without that. So in some ways, it was a joint decision. I was starting out my MBA while my husband was starting out culinary school as he was transitioning careers from an attorney to a chef. So it was a lot, and we have a young toddler. So think about that too, the impact it'll have on your personal lives and personal relationships.
Right. I know there's been a lot of information that's been highlighted during the presentation, and I've just going through the questions that were previously typed out. Some of them have already been answered, but just a couple, that I'm going to pick out. Um, there's a particular question about a gap in work profile. What are your thoughts, guys, on if there's a gap in the work profile, how will the admissions committee view it, negatively, positively, or is there a way to kind of make it like an advantage, thing kind of thing?
So Deepika, it depends, what is the gap and why the gap was. If it's a justifiable gap, then obviously nobody cares. Specifically, if I go back and say, what, I took a break and I prepared for a year to be part of a premium institute, obviously will be taken very positively because it shows your commitment. Uh, if there has been a gap because you were laid off, it's understood, as well. I mean, as long as there is consistency in the information which you're providing, and you're able to justify it, it really doesn't matter. I had a classmate who had 6 months of break between two jobs, and she just decided just to sit at home. There was no reason, and she was my classmate because that's
Mhm.
what she said, that I just wanted to kind of take a break.
Yeah.
There was another person who had I think 1 year 4 months of stint of where he tried setting up his dad's business, and he was not in work, and then he joined business again, joined the job again, was part of the class. So really not being taken very negatively until unless you're not able to justify it. If it
Yeah.
is a level reason,
Correct.
then it's good enough.
Yeah, and I had a gap in my professional experience, and one was just to pursue some entrepreneurial aspirations. Kind of, I was also trying to help out my family's business at the time, and or you might just want to have travel, and that actually brings a rich experience to the table as well. Or listen, right now, at least in the U.S., health, wellness, emotional health. I mean, these things are important, and Kellogg actually values that balance, So if it was for that, I mean, you probably don't want to get into the details, but it might have just been, hey, I just needed a break. I needed to reflect. I needed to figure out what I wanted to do next. And as long as you can tell the story around it, like Atul said, explain that a little bit in the most transparent way that you can. I think that it's very much common, is, for example, I think that Deepika, you had mentioned there are people who might even think about career changes before they move into their MBA. I made a huge shift in my career from consulting to marketing, and you might need to take a break to reevaluate what type of career change you wanted to make, maybe learn a little bit about it. um, so that's what's another reason, or that if that was the case with you, to highlight.
Right. And as long as you can bring out all this, in your essay, I'm thinking an essay would be, the perfect
Hmm.
platform. If you're worried about
Yeah.
something that doesn't, really gel in your profile, then you could just kind of, use it as an
Yeah.
advantage and highlight it in your essay, and show personal strength or something, basically
Exactly.
getting a situation. Okay. I have a couple of questions on the profile actually that I'd like to highlight. So, are there any tips about extracurricular activities, or what kind of other, things you should highlight on your profile, apart from, of course, traditional work experience and your grades? What are the other things that, would be favorably looked upon in your profile and are worth highlighting?
So I will say that, anything you might have done in the community that you've made an impact on, if you are part of a board, for example, right, whether it's for a nonprofit or, a company, that could be an important thing, so I think like those two come top of mind in terms of how else to, you know, build a profile that's well-rounded. And it could be, if you're an undergrad, what were some things you did in undergrad beyond the, did you enter like case study competitions, or, any kind of organization within the undergrad program that you started or led, I started the South Asian Students Association at my undergrad. I mean, I didn't really speak to that because I was, 15, 16 years out when I was applying for my MBA, but these types of things can help build a well-rounded profile.
So
Uh,
I do agree that these kind of things help, but again, just don't stress too much.
Yeah.
If you haven't done something, in India, typically we focus more on the CADs. If you into a job, if you want to get into something which is being sponsored by your organization, like Vodafone had something called, Vodafone Foundation, and if you part of that, that could be highlighted in your profile very clearly. But if you haven't done that, don't stress too much
Hmm.
about it. If you've not done that, you can't do anything. So just
Yeah.
don't think that this could be a negative impact on my profile. Somebody who has it might have a little positive impact, but it is not a negative thing
Yeah.
which would happen to you. I would strongly suggest, and if you guys have started your jobs recently, or for 2 3 years in the job, if you could move or transition, specifically if you in India, if you can move and transition into a startup kind of environment, that'll help. That'll help because you would learn so much that you would have a lot of things to talk about in your essay and the interview. So
Yeah.
so yeah, the NGO, all these help, definitely help. So there's Janita, this David Gedding, he was not part of any NGO and all that stuff, but he had some 5 ultra marathons which he has run and all that stuff that help his profile. So
Hmm.
if you've done anything, like somebody wrote saying that if I've written a book, yes, that will help because writing a book, if the book is got published, it will help. So all these things will help. So anything which you've done apart from that would definitely add to your resume. If you've been a marathon runner, if you've been a cyclist, because there are different lessons which you would learn from that.
Mm.
Means discipline. So that is
Yeah.
something which you can highlight about. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think just again, play on your strengths. Before going in, you need to know kind of what your key strengths are, and how those can be highlighted through anything that you've done. And Atul, this is why I'm so glad Atul's on. I think we have a balance of perspectives, and you bring a really good perspective on, from Indian students, what typically would be your profile, right? And that's okay, right? If it is, very focused on technical skills, that's okay. Um, so yeah, I'd agree with that.
Okay. I have a question from Omi. He wants to know about, are there any, can you explain a little bit about the different types of majors that they have at Kellogg's for the MBA? What are the different areas that Kellogg's kind of is good at, and they specialize in pretty much marketing or other things. Yeah, example.
I can start with, I can add a little bit, and then, obviously Atul will add. So historically, I think Kellogg was known to have a strength in marketing, but I think it's evolved a lot over time. So what I see Kellogg's strength in is leadership, entrepreneurial thinking. And they don't, now there's no kind of focus. I mean, you graduate from Kellogg, people don't, assume you've graduated with a strength in marketing anymore. It's because we have a lot more diversity of thought and backgrounds, whether it's out of undergrad or an executive MBA. And when you have profiles, like I said, doctors, lawyers, veterans, it does prepare you with a broader perspective on business and management. So even if you're an engineer today, or you're very specialized, um, like Atul said, some schools lean heavy on finance. Some schools do lean heavily on, technology or strategy. But I think generally with Kellogg, they've evolved a lot in terms of what they're known for.
Yep. Very clearly, Janita, I mean, we're known for marketing. So we're known for marketing. You guys would read books which have been written by the professors of Kellogg, which is what we Indians, an Indian MBA is also used. However, operations pretty strong, leadership very strong. Typically, you would not look at Kellogg program as, operations or finance or something. It's more of general management, and every stream is equally important for Kellogg and is equally good. In this thing, yeah, you will find a lot of people after finishing their after graduation, starting up their own ventures, and I've met a lot in India.
Mm-hmm.
When I go through the LinkedIn profile of the alum here, 50 to 60% have started their own ventures immediately after the college or after a couple of years of college. The reason behind that is because you get a mix of everything finally from the college. So that's what it is. Yeah.
And what I have gained out of my experience is, one, it's the confidence, right? It's the confidence to lead in your organization, perhaps, that you might not have had prior. And it helps you speak intelligently across functional domains. So, even if it's just like terminology, right? When you're sitting in the C-suite, you need to understand, M&A strategy. If they're talking about inorganic growth, you need to have, a way to contribute to that conversation. You need to be able to speak to the financials. You might very well be, looking at your company's financials in order to make decisions. You need to know what those statements look like, even if that's not the background. So that's really another um, value add that an MBA program provides. Because as you become senior, you're going to be pulled into, different conversations with different functions. Even if you're a specialist, right, you need to see how that ties to the company's bottom line, or, the company's vision and strategy. So that's, I think, for me, what brought, value to me from the MBA. And yeah, I would say that's another key piece. And I cannot emphasize I cannot emphasize enough the value of the network. Some schools are stronger in their network. And even if you think about the network, but like how active and open the network is post graduation to support and help you. I mean, I can tell you, I have like so many WhatsApp groups and Telegram groups that, there's always conversations on, market dynamics, investments, jobs, and career opportunities. And I found that to be really helpful. And I feel like the Kellogg alumni are just very receptive and open to speaking to you.
Okay. Well, I think that we have answered a significant number of questions, and I know that there are still a few that we didn't get to because of the specific nature of those questions. So, I apologize if we haven't gotten to yours yet, but one of our counselors will be contacting you after this webinar. So if you do have any specific questions in your mind, feel free to ask them, and we will definitely make sure that we get back to you with the correct answers. And I know there have been some test prep questions too. Now, since this the program that Janita and Atul have done is an executive MBA, so she didn't have to do, they didn't have to do the GMAT, but definitely test prep is recommended if you're not doing the executive MBA. We have test prep programs for that as well. And it's just I think a few of the top points that were highlighted were actually the importance of having a good, well-rounded profile. Kellogg's is looking for a diverse class, so diversity is fine. You don't have to worry if you're not in the conventional kind of mode where you have to be like, having some work experience at a blue chip company or whatever. It's okay if you're working at your father's business or you're doing something else, as long as that adds value to your profile. And the other things that are important are the essays. So you have to make sure that you're being honest, you're bringing out your skills, you're bringing out what you can contribute to Kellogg's as a whole, the class as a whole, what you can contribute to the whole culture over there. So that's really important as well. So I think those three things: test prep, the essay, the profile, those are kind of the standout points that I got, that are really important. Some of the technical details, like transcripts and other things, I mean, our counselors will be really happy to help you if you need guidance in those kind of areas as well, to tell you about education loans and give you a little bit
Mhm.
more guidance about scholarships. So anything that those kind of questions, please feel free to ask our counselors when you get that follow-up call.
Yeah, I
Um,
just want, oh, sorry, go ahead, Deepika.
no, no, that's fine. Go ahead.
No, one thing we didn't touch on, and we don't have to, discuss it here, but again, Atul and I are open to any follow-up questions you guys have. But as international students, there might be certain requirements, right? Visa or things like that. So we can touch on it now. I don't know if Atul, you have any thoughts on that. But we had, in my cohort, we had a ton of international students from Latin America, just a proximity, and they're very much able to get through that. There's obviously a lot of options, as an international student to enroll in a US school. So
The only thing, I mean, just to kind of add to that, Jinita, the only thing which you would not have access to, specifically if people are from India, is that there are only X number of information sessions and a sample class which happens, which most of the US students have every weekend. Typically you have once in 6 months, or probably 4 times, and that's something typically your team would be able to tell them in more
Yeah.
detail. Otherwise, you would not find any problem in terms of the visa requirements and the whole paperwork and all. Kellogg is a very strong brand name. So typically when you go and say Northwestern Kellogg, you typically, there are not many questions which are asked, to be honest. I have seen people in front of me, specifically peak admissions time when I went for my visas. Not many questions if you say Northwestern and Kellogg, because they understand the brand value which uh,
yeah.
Kellogg commands. So, and then that also, I think mostly Deepika's team would be able to kind of guide you and help you out.
Yeah,
And
and so I've just added a couple of things in the appendix just so you guys get a snapshot of the types of programs Kellogg offers, and then just some additional resources um, in terms of understanding, the student experience. Kellogg has a website and blog on that. Poets and Quants is a nice resource on MBA experiences, and then obviously if you're evaluating schools, some rankings that you can look at.
yeah. And Janita, can you move on to the contact us slide, and then we'll wind up. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, so these are this is our contact information. So we are very accessible. Either you can give us a call or WhatsApp, or definitely follow us on Instagram and Facebook, because we have a lot of different kind of webinars, a lot of tidbits, interesting facts about universities. I mean, there's a whole lot of wealth of information on our social media pages. So it's really nice if you can follow us and like us. as I said, one of our counselors will be following up with you after the webinar. I hope you all enjoyed and definitely learned from our expert panelists in this session. I'd like to extend heartfelt thanks to Janita and Atul. I mean, that's so nice of you guys to come here and share your experiences with all of our students. And I know that we've learned a lot during this webinar. So thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.